This is the plaintiff, David Milner. He says he testified for the defendant in a criminal case. The defendant won the case. He got fired because he went to court, and now the defendant refuses to pay him for their agreed-upon rate for services rendered. That's right, he got the royal runaround and is out $3,975 and is suing for exactly that today. This is the defendant, William. He says the plaintiff's testimony on the stand was vague at best. It didn't help him out in the least. And he also testified he was not getting paid for his testimony. Now the plaintiff is claiming he worked 35 hours. He most certainly did not and is owed nothing. He's accused of double-crossing an expert.
All parties, please raise your right hand. Be seated. Come to order, please.
So did you ever find a lingering?
Litigants have been sworn, Your Honor.
Okay, Mr. Milner, you are suing William. You've asked to be referred to only by your first name, so we'll respect that, for $3,975 for expert witness fees because you testified on his behalf in a manslaughter trial, correct?
That is correct.
All right. Who is it that retained you?
Essentially, I was asked by the defendant's brother-in-law to act as an expert witness.
Was the defendant's brother-in-law the lawyer on the case?
Yeah. No, he was not the lawyer on the case.
Okay.
He would not basically represent his brother-in-law. But he asked me through this person that had been working for him to act as an expert witness in a construction accident.
Okay. And so did the lawyer who was working on the case enter into a retainment agreement with you?
He did not. We had basically an oral agreement, essentially asking me to help him understand the construction accident as the trial was going to proceed.
What is your particular expertise that allows you to do that?
I'm an architect since 1977. I'm a construction manager. I'm very familiar with the construction laws, having worked in the School Construction Authority.
At the time, were you working for the city of New York?
Yes, I was. I was transitioning from one agency to another agency. I was contacted in the summer of 2009 by the defendant's brother-in-law, and I was asked to look at the construction drawings.
Are you allowed to do that when you're working for the city?
I work for the city 35 to 40 hours a week. If I do this on the weekends or if I'm not being paid by the city for 168 hours in a week.
But the city didn't see it that way?
Well, the city did not see it that way.
You were charged with manslaughter. Why?
Well, there was a construction accident, and there was a similar accident in the city of New York, which they highly publicized, and they decided that they were going to prosecute me and this other people in the city just
What was
for news.
The accident that happened on your construction site was what? You own, do you own a business or a house on one lot?
Well, I owned the house on the lot.
All right. Do you rent it out or did you live there?
No, I rented it out.
And then you owned the adjacent lot.
Yes, correct.
And you were constructing on the adjacent lot.
Yes.
What happened?
Well, we were building close to the existing house.
Closer or literally adjacent?
Well, actually, literally adjacent.
Literally, they were sharing a wall.
Right. And the house was over 100 years old, and it had a very bad foundation. And tried repairing it before doing the excavation. While we were doing the excavation, going down, repairing it, and it seemed to be holding okay. But we did have a lot of rain and probably soaked the bricks and stuff. There was a brick foundation, soaked them, made them heavy and unstable, and there was an accident.
What was the accident?
The part of the foundation wall collapsed and crushed the fellow.
And killed him?
Yes.
And you were charged with manslaughter based on how you were conducting the construction, correct? You were found not guilty.
Yes.
Okay. But it was the prosecutor's contention that the way in which you conducted the construction was unsafe for the worker.
Yeah, but he made up a whole lot of stuff and embellished on it and things that made no sense because he's not a construction guy. And
Did you ever meet with him?
Yes, I did.
Okay. And I imagine that when you're launching a defense, people are talking to you about what it's going to cost you, right? Nobody's surprising you with bills without having talked about it with you.
No.
I mean, when you hire an expert, normally you got to pay the expert.
I don't know the deal with my brother-in-law. My brother-in-law is also an attorney, and he did a big construction site. So he's involved in construction. So I don't know the deal they made with him. But
Your lawyer didn't tell you we'll have to pay X for this fellow?
well, this is like 6 years ago. I don't really remember exactly what he said. But my brother-in-law said he was going to take care of it or something, and the lawyer, I was paying the lawyer, so
Why
I think
don't
it's
you
come
have
out
a
of his
written
fees.
agreement?
At the time,
Was this your first time acting as an
basically, it
expert?
was my first time as an expert witness. And my friend...
It's a $4,000 expert witness contract where you
Well-
have to keep, I'm not talking, where you would have to keep track of your hours and bill them as your, and give somebody, there should be a lot of paper here, not just paper at the end. So the state of New York, though, alerts you, a supervisor or somebody, how do they find out that you're testifying? Did it come out in the paper?
Prior to trial, they wanted me to submit my resume as to the ADA, the Assistant District Attorney, for their review.
So he or she blew the whistle.
So they saw that I'm
Yeah,
a city
they're
employee.
like, what? Wait, he works for the city? He works for us, and we're going to cross-examine our own employee? The whole thing's a little seedy. I mean, it would have occurred to, I was a government worker all my life. This kind of isn't the idea. But that's not what concerns me the most around here. What concerns me a lot more is that when I read your testimony, you actually said I'm not getting paid.
I was actually going to receive a check from William on May the 9th, which was the day before I was to testify on trial. He had actually produced a check, and we met at the Village Hall in Atlantic Beach, where we were going to go over the case and the testimony. And approximately a half an hour before I was to meet with Mr. William and his attorney, I got a call from the chief attorney from the Conflict of Interest Board. And even though it was a criminal trial and there's nothing in the Code of Ethics or New York City law stating that I couldn't accept payment, he felt it would appear to be a conflict of interest if I accepted.
I think he's right, but I understand what you're saying, but I think he's right. So
Yeah,
what did you do? You
as
told
long
him,
as I
hold
was
on,
a
don't
city-
pay me yet.
I said, essentially, I could not accept a check. And that's what I said.
What does that mean?
I could not accept a check.
You could accept cash?
I would think so, but that wasn't said.
Oh.
It was stated that I could not accept a check. And
Wink, wink, like you got to pay me under the table because I can't get
well,
caught?
again,
Because
when-
you did tell your bosses that you weren't going to get paid, and then you're suing to get paid, and you're saying you were supposed to get paid, but
Well-
you were saying you were doing it as a favor. That's what you told your bosses. I read your texts and emails back and forth to your bosses that you're not going to get paid. Essentially, it's a favor. That's what the definition. Well, what do you mean more of a favor? You said essentially it's more of a favor, and then they ask, I'm not familiar with the phrase more of a favor. What does that mean? Well, it means that I'm doing it, without getting paid. That's what a favor is. And yet you're telling me that you were always supposed to get paid. You testified at the trial that you weren't supposed to get paid. They asked you whether you were whether you were getting paid for your testimony. Your answer is no. But I know, because I'm not stupid, that you were going to get paid. That you're a liar then, and you're a liar now.
I didn't lie
So
about
what do
anything.
I? Now you're such a liar. You know you were supposed to pay for expert testimony. Are you kidding me? You think that this was going to be for free? Did you have any other expert witnesses?
No.
How many years in jail were you facing?
15, I think it was.
Look at that, 15 years. One expert witness, guy testifies, you walk.
I walked because I didn't commit a murder. It was a construction accident.
Okay, just a second, pal. The only evidence that you didn't was him.
But,
Were you supposed to meet him with a check and you had the check and then he said, no, I can't take the money right now. I'm in
yeah,
hot
that's
water.
true, but it was a $2,000.
Okay, so if it's true, how can you look me in the eye and tell me you were never supposed to pay for his expert testimony and
but
it
wait
was
a
a
minute.
favor?
Well, it wasn't $4,000,
What was your check for?
$2,000. But he said he can't take it. I says, okay.
Well, was a check for $2,000 because that's what you had worked up to that point?
It was for the amount on the invoice, which was
Which was what?
$3,975.
Do you have an invoice that you gave them before, that you had presented, that you can show me that you presented the day before the trial?
Yes.
Do you have an invoice that he presented
No,
to
he
you?
never gave me an invoice.
You got fired, right?
Yes, I was terminated.
You got terminated exactly for this.
Well, I believe that would be the reason we did
Yeah.
file suit through my municipal union.
And what happened?
They ultimately settled with us.
Can you disclose the terms or no?
No.
What was the action that you filed?
Basically, they denied me of my First and Fourth Amendment rights. I was subpoenaed to testify. I had tried to get out of the testimony, but the defense attorney for Mr. William stated he was going to call for a mistrial for basically not allowing his only expert witness to testify.
That wouldn't be your problem. I mean, that would be somebody else's problem.
Well, it was my problem because I was told...
It was your problem because you wanted $3,975,
No.
pal. It has nothing to do with you upholding the integrity of New York City.
The money was really not that issue.
Well, it apparently is something now. So why is it now? What changed?
I want to close this out on a philosophical basis.
On
okay?
a philosophical basis?
Correct.
Tell me that.
Welcome back to the People's Court. Harvey Levin here. So, should this expert witness, this plaintiff, get his money or not?
No, he lied.
He did lie, but he did testify for the guy. In fact, he was more effective for the guy by lying.
But he lied, so he shouldn't get his money.
Okay, what do you say?
He rendered his services, so he should be paid for it,
Even if he lied to the jury in doing it?
even if he lied.
Interesting. You're going to be the tiebreaker.
I think he shouldn't get paid. He was under oath. He's not supposed to lie, so why should he get paid?
Okay. I'll explain why that's an interesting theory, going inside the courtroom.
I happen to feel that as a result of my actions, which I felt was basically pursuing justice for an individual who I felt was being unjustly charged with very serious crimes, and this activity goes on, the concept of taking a permit out and doing the work with somebody else's insurances goes on a continuous basis in New York City.
When you talk about pursuing justice, Mr. Milner, let's talk about pursuing justice. You misled a jury and a court and your boss about whether or not you had struck a deal to be paid. You misled the jury. See, when a lawyer cross-examines you and says, "Are you getting paid for this?" The idea is that there is paid testimony and there is free testimony. Free testimony comes from the heart because you believe in something, and that's very compelling if you're a trier of fact. Paid testimony, the lawyer gets up and argues he's a hired hand. This is how he eats. He makes his living this way. So if somebody's going to hire him to say something, he's just going to say it because he got $4,000 for it. You hid from the jury and the judge that you expected $4,000 and were about to get it paid 24 hours earlier. But you want me to give you justice? You know what justice is? You not getting what you want. Even if it hurts me that you get to slide. The worst evil between the two of you, don't talk, is you misleading a judge and a jury. I'm not going to help you to get your dirty money.
We told the jury he wasn't getting paid, and that's exactly what he got. So step right over here next to me and face this way. What's your thought on this?
Well, my thought is, one, the judge would not let me speak. And obviously, once I didn't get paid, I was still a city employee. But once I was no longer a city employee, my agreement, my statement, and I had not been paid at the time, was ended. I no longer had an obligation not to get paid.
Sir, if you would. Thank you.
All right. So, first of all, let me just. What do you have in your mind here?
Well, I'll tell you the truth. I think the judge was extra hard on him. And that DA that we had the court case, he was extra hard on him, getting the guy fired. I actually feel bad for him. You know, I thought that she was going to give him a little something, you know. And
Yeah, well, she's not too happy with you either.
I don't know why I didn't commit a crime, and that's what the jury thought. And
No, but you made a deal to pay the guy secretly, and then you didn't pay him.
Well, yeah, that actually happened, but he did pad that bill very badly. He didn't work 40 hours on it. And
Whatever. Harvey?
Okay, Kurt, so what this gentleman said, there's a term for it, and it's called unclean hands, which means you can't come into the courtroom and say, I want my money in a transaction where you were dirty. And he's kind of dirty, and he didn't get paid. And that will do it for this case. Litigants for the next case on the way into the courtroom right now.